You're listening to the Dibbly-Dobbly Podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Dibbly-Dobbly Podcast. Before we get started, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe, and click the bell to get the latest episodes of the podcast. Like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Joining me on this cricket discussion today are a couple of Americans who've started a cricket YouTube channel called Cricket for Americans, learning about cricket. They also have other YouTube channels like Boring Reviews and their latest channel called The Final Reaction. It's Nick the Wicketkeeper and Gabe the Night Watchman joining me today. Guys, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us.
It's a great pleasure to have you here today for this cricket discussion. Before we get into that discussion about some topics that I've chosen, let's talk about Cricket for Americans, how that started and how that was born. First of all, Boring Reviews and The Final Reaction. Let's talk about those first before we get into Cricket for Americans. So you started those channels, obviously The Final Reaction, the latest one. Boring Reviews was the first one. I'll start with you, Nick. Was it always a passion of yours to do a YouTube channel about movies, film, cinema related stuff?
Absolutely. That's why I started originally the Born Reviews. Then Gabe came on like video 2 or 3 or something like that. He's like, oh, we had talked originally about doing it together. And I just put an impromptu video about Star Wars. And he's like, oh man, I gotta be on the next one. But it was intended for, American cinema because that's what I grew up watching. And that's what I had fallen in love with, and as most YouTube channels go, it's slow going. And then we got introduced early on from a request to an Indian trailer reaction. And it was so early on, I didn't even know you can press the subtitle button on YouTube to hear what they were saying. So I'm sitting here reacting to this, not knowing what's being said, but it opened up a whole new audience. And it morphed into Indian cinema, and me and Gabe and Jody and Chris learning about Indian cinema and not realizing how vast it is and how amazing the cinema is. And eventually it became its own thing where Born Reviews was us reacting to Indian cinema and Indian way of life and culture and all that kind of stuff. And part of that culture is cricket. So the Final Reaction, that got started recently so that we can kind of separate the two, Indian cinema and American cinema, because you want to have your niche audience and whatever your channel is that wants to come back for more videos. And so me and Gabe, we still love all types of cinemas. So that's where the Final Reaction came from.
Yeah, excellent. Gabe, movies have been a passion of yours as well. That's why you joined Nick on this journey with Boring Reviews and the Final Reaction.
Yeah. I love film, and for me, it was something I never even thought about doing. And Nick, he's a go-getter. Nick is a he's actually my mentor at school. And when he says he's going to do something, like unlike most people, he jumps in and does it. His biggest strength, I would say, is his commitment to whatever he chooses to do. And I mean, he's a published author. He has his own book he wrote before, Legend of Sturgis Baraha. A good read. But he just, out of the blue one day, I'm at work driving limos, and he sent me a video clip, and I thought it was just like a regular YouTube video because we had literally talked about it in the cafeteria. And then like 2 days later, I'm at work driving limos in my second job, and it pops up, and I'm like, what is this? And he's like, bro, what'd you think about the video? And he had created his own channel. So I was like, oh, this is so cool, because we spent hours at work talking about Star Wars and Marvels. We would dominate the conversation in the not the locker room, the cafeteria, about comic book films and just film in general. And, to the point where very few other teachers even got a word in. So I thought it was a cool way for us to hang out and to express our views and talk to other people that were like-minded, because not everyone at our school was into films and stuff. So, way to hang out with my best friend and my mentor. And and then, like you said, Final Reaction was just us now trying to separate the two channels, Boring Reviews, keep it now to our main hardcore audience. And then the Final Review, some more stuff that maybe like not as mainstream and a lot of people might not recognize, but we like doing anyway.
Yeah, but fantastic. Do what you're passionate about in life, I say. Go for it.
Right.
Achieve your dreams, and that's the important thing. That's what you're doing. So, by the way, great stuff. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Onwards and upwards, as they say.
That's right.
So boring reviews, and you started a thing called Cricket Tuesday, reacting to cricket matches and different things, learning about cricket and all that stuff. The question I have, Nick and Gabe, why choose cricket? Why choose a game that's so complicated to many people, but in reality, it's simple. When you understand it, it is simple. It's not all that complicated. We make it out to be complicated, but it is simple. But why learn about cricket? A couple of Americans, foreign sport to them, used to baseball, learning about cricket.
You just hit you hit the key word, baseball. So why? Because somebody asked us to react to this cricket video, and we did. And I made the comment, "Oh, this is just like baseball. I can follow it." And I got crushed in the comments. What are you talking about? Cricket's nothing like baseball, blah, 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 blah. Now, I love to argue. And not only do I love to argue, but I am going to go out there and if I know something well, like you said, it's really, really simple. And I even break it down like this to my son. Baseball is super simple. See the ball, hit the ball. All right. If you are a batter, you want to swing at strikes. If you're a pitcher, you want them to swing at the balls. It is that simple. Field your position. You catch, you pitch, you throw. And obviously, there's different rules to the games. Obviously, in baseball, we have foul territory. Where in cricket, there is no territory. You got to defend the entire field, which is still nuts to me. I think New Zealand is the only team that has like 80,000 fielders out there. They can field everything, no matter what. Like, are you sure there's 11 guys? Let me count out there. But the sports are very similar, and it was really my hard-headedness to prove my point of how the sports are similar, which is why I really wanted to learn the nuances between of cricket and the game of cricket. And then, man, even to the point where the bowlers and use different position hand grips to be able to throw different types of balls, whether, you're talking about a spinner throwing the wrong end, you got Shane Warren there behind you, it's the same thing in baseball, right? You've got the baseball, it's different grips, different position, whether it's your wrist, whether it's your fingers. And I'm like, guys, they're super, super similar. Now, cricket came first. I realized that. And as Americans, we always try to do our own thing. So I'm sure that's where the game was born of. But for people who've actually sat down and watched both sports, how could you not see the comparison?
That's right. And I've seen a little bit of baseball in my time. Played it at school, PE and all that stuff.
Right.
And I've watched a game that they took here to Australia one year in Sydney, I think. One of the baseball games or something. I watched that. I was quite fascinated by it. And you are right, Gabe. There are similarities to both sports. But people just say that because, cricket and baseball, obviously, two different things. But when you think about it, it's a bat and a ball. A pitcher is like a bowler. A catcher is like a keeper. Bases, whereas in cricket, you've got creases
right,
to make your ground. So there is a lot of similarities in both games. Batting order, tactics, field placements. It's very similar to cricket. So you did that, Cricket Tuesday. So then we come to Cricket for Americans. So how did that get started? So Nick, how did that get started?
So there's kind of two reasons, or maybe a few more than that, but we fell in love with cricket. We really did. And I used to always make fun of cricket. I mean, not always, but the 4 or 5 times it would come on TV, I'd be like, what are these guys doing? Like, all they got to do is run between the stumps. And I even know they were called stumps. It was very odd to me. So for me, it was one of those things that I instantly judged negatively. And so when we started reacting to it, I felt so inadequate with my knowledge on the sport. I knew nothing. I had no idea what was going on, but it had an interest to me because of the baseball similarities and other things. And it's kind of like when you when you're in that puppy love stage in a new relationship, like everything is new and everything's fantastic and you're on the phone for 4 or 5 hours. It's kind of like that with cricket, because Gabe and I, we love sports. We are obsessed with sports. I'm sure our wives wish we didn't like sports. We'd have more time with them, but we just obsessed with it. So we started doing Cricket Tuesday, and people that we would meet in the YouTube community and in the comment section, the regular viewers, they would say, stay away from cricket, stay away from cricket. The ICC, they're going to come after you. Copyright, they're going to take down your channel. And we had built some traction with Born Reviews, and we didn't want to lose the channel, but I didn't want to stop learning about cricket and, you know, doing reactions and whatnot. So I told Gabe, I said, I think we need to start a different channel. And then that can be like our testing ground. And if that one gets taken down by the ICC, I keep saying the ICC, whatever, copyright claims and strikes, then it doesn't hurt Born Reviews. And I remember putting a poll out, and we had viewers who were like, no, don't do it. This is going to be horrible. But we got really fortunate that we had interest and we had an audience. And then once we started doing the live streaming, that was Gabe's idea. It completely changed everything. It brought a lot of authenticity to what we did, but it was just one of those things where you're kind of like building that machine, you're building that baby. And it was the love of the sport of cricket that kept it going.
Yeah. And to Nick's point, dude, somebody who's a frequent friend of the channel, has his own channel, Ozjod from Cricket for Us 2.0. There's a reason his channel is called Cricket for Us 2.0, because 1.0 got struck down. Like, it's no joke, man. Like, cricket does not mess around.
Bye.
Dude, I remember on Twitter, I didn't even know that you could do this. On Twitter, I was watching the game, so I was like, oh, like literally with my phone, I recorded a replay of I forgot what it was, West Indies something, and posted it. And they went after it on Twitter, like, you're using like copyrighted material, blah, 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 blah. This is your first strike. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? I'm not profiting from that. This is Twitter. I'm just putting it out because I want to share it. But yeah, to Nick's point, it was because we were trying to separate it from Born Reviews, because people told us it was, you know, copyright bait, you know what I'm saying? And we had to be cautious and whatnot. But luckily, you know, knock on wood, it's been good for us. And then with the live streaming, man, I am a glutton for punishment. And, you know, I'm a Knicks fan. So it's almost like therapeutic for me. I joined this it's called Knicks Fan TV, where Knicks fans have their own, like, you know, CFA for America, where they, you know, during games, they live stream, they talk. And all Knicks fans do is complain, obviously, about how bad the team is and how much James Dolan should be fired. And I was like, the interaction of the community, being able to share their passion for the game and their passion for the Knicks. I was like, that's be something cool that we could bring to to CFA. So when I took it to Nick, he said, hey, man, let's go for it. And then, yeah, that definitely changed the game, opened it up, got us a lot more people, a lot more subs. And it was a lot of fun, man. And even though our very first attempt at a live stream was, what was it, Nick? I want to say a 5-hour plus marathon of rain delays. And it was ridiculous. And somebody said, now you're a true fan. You know what we go through. Because in England, I mean, forget about it. It was England versus the West Indies. And I want to say that first day, maybe we got in 2 hours, if that. But we had been up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was rain delay after rain delay. It was crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's you got to get used to that in cricket, really. The rain, the cold, the wet, especially in England.
Jeez, yes.
You know, but, you know, that's experience in the game. That's how the game is, really. Can't really control the weather because you can't play cricket under roofs.
Right.
But here in Australia, there was one ground in Melbourne, in Docklands, that played cricket underneath its roof, sort of like a dome-shaped stadium. It's actually called Marvel Stadium, actually.
Really?
Yeah, they named it Marvel Stadium. Australia played a match there against the ICC World 11. This is back in 2005 for a few ODIs, because that's what they did back then. The ICC, they had this sort of ICC World 11, had like Dravid, Lara, Gale, Chris Gale was involved like as well in the one day, and they played a one-off test match as well, which went for 6 days. It was called a super test back then.
Wow.
but they played a few ODIs underneath this stadium with a roof. So that's the only ground in Australia that cricket was played underneath a roof. And obviously the Melbourne Renegades play there for the Big Bash here in Australia. And obviously Australia played South Africa there as well, back in the early 2000s, before that 2005 series against the ICC World 11. So if all stadiums had roofs around the world in cricket, and it will solve the problem with the weather. But sadly, it's going to be a lot of money, and you can't really spend that money.
Yeah.
I mean, and it also changes the game, though, because we've got domes in baseball. I hate dome stadiums. It really takes away from the elements where, you know, if I'm a pitcher, for instance, and the wind is blowing in, I know I can pitch up in the zone because most of those are going to be pop fly balls. And I'm talking about strategy in baseball, where if the wind is blowing out, I've got to change my approach, and I'm trying to get ground balls where, you know, those neutral stadiums like the Homer Dome and you know, Tampa Bay. There's a couple dome stadiums in baseball. I absolutely hate them. I do. So I prefer the open air. Our only complaint is with England, and we brought this up with this recent WTC championship. You know, rain is an issue. Fine. Then do not make a concrete schedule on the test match will finish on this date. We need 5 days. We're going to get in those 5 days, period. So if it goes, it's like the NBA championship. They don't say it's going to be done on this day or whatever. It could go 5 games. It could go 4 games. The team could get swept. It could go all 7 games. You know what I mean? Like, give yourself that latitude, the room to build in a couple of rain days, not 1 extra day. You know what I mean? Like, come on. And we were lucky to get it in. So hindsight's 2020. People are going to say, oh, it still worked out. You got lucky it worked out. And I know it's all about sponsors, and it's all about, you know, corporate entities saying games got to be over at this time. And, you know, but it's to me, that's taking away something from the game. And I think it's dangerous once we start letting, you know, Pepsi and Coke. Oh man, I just got you copyrighted. But once we start letting them or in KFC in Australia dictate our test or T20 or ODI schedule, there's a problem.
That's right. That interference from the outside is a real problem facing all sports, not only cricket, but really cricket. Yeah, well, cricket, you know, sponsorship, you know, with players is big. Commercial rights, television rights, they're big money, especially in India. Very big money indeed. And here in Australia, we just had a new television rights deal a few years ago with free-to-air TV and pay TV.
Right.
And a lot of people in Australia are outraged with that because for 40 years, it was on free-to-air TV. And they decided all of a sudden that network, who everybody knows in Australia and all around the world, because it had one of the best commentary panels you ever had, the likes of former players who played for Australia, all of them, the likes of Richie Benaud, great man, former Australian captain, brilliant leg spinner, all-rounder, Bill Lawry, former Australian opening batsman, Tony Greig, who played for England, brilliant commentator, Ian Chappell, former Australian captain. You know, these legends, I grew up listening to these guys on TV. I woke up every morning to watch a test match as a kid, as everyone did back in the day. And you heard these voices. Sadly, no more. Obviously, a couple of them, Richie Benaud and Tony Greig, sadly passed on, obviously. Terrible loss, and we miss them greatly. You know, the voices of cricket, all of them are the voices of cricket, but definitely Richie Benaud, you know, go listen to his commentary. You know, he's outstanding. Bill Lawry's enthusiastic, you know, got him, yes, he's gone, you know, carrying on like that. So it's sort of missing that sort of feel about it in Australia because of that. So they made the new deal after 40 years to go away from 1 station to 2, free to air to pay TV. So 2 stations covering it. Now, as I said before, a lot of people don't like that because pay TV is expensive, certainly here in Australia. And now with the pay TV service, they've offered a new streaming service, which, you know, they're doing that because they just want more money. You know, that's what they're doing it for. And people are outraged because in Australia, at the moment, on the free-to-air network, you can watch men's test matches. You can't watch ODIs from the men or T20s. You can only watch test matches. Women's matches, women's Big Bash, and men's Big Bash. That's it. Whereas on pay TV, you can watch the whole lot. So that's why, for me, I have the streaming service. So I'm able to watch the men's ODIs and T20s. People are outraged of that because they can't watch ODIs and T20s on free-to-air TV like you did before. And people are very outraged about that. It's all because of money and all that stuff. And, you know, it's a 6-year deal or something, but they stuffed it up. Cricket Australia stuffed it up. You know, they don't know what's best for the fans. They're thinking about the television rights, money. And I feel no matter where you are in Australia, now this is only Australia, you know, I can't speak for the rest of the world, but here in Australia, you should have every right to watch cricket on free TV or listen to it on the radio, which you do, which some people do from that older generation, listen to it on the radio as you do. And obviously, if you have pay TV, you can watch it on pay TV, but you should have every access to every game, no matter what television network you watch.
That would be nice. It's been so long here in the States. I can't remember the last time. Like, honestly, I remember, you know, listening to baseball games when the Yankees weren't playing at home. I could listen to them on the radio, or if they were playing, because I grew up in New York, if they were playing at home, I could watch them on TV. Now they block them because they're your local team and you've got to watch it on. It's so much garbage. Ours is just, it's brutal out here, and it's not changing. You know what I mean? We end up playing.
It's every sport.
Huge amount of money, and it's every sport. The NFL, I would think, I think it's the worst by far. They're the most expensive package as well. But, you know, for us, you know, it's crazy for us. We've got 2 services, or 3, and we cover most cricket games. Like, just as a matter of fact, I got billed again the other day for Willow, $60 a year. That's it. I was like, what? Oh, I forgot what it was. $60 a year. Okay. I forget. I don't know what. I forget the Hotstar. But, you know, as far as streaming services go, that's relatively inexpensive to catch as many games as you can.
Right.
You know, compared to sign up for MLB TV or the NFL Network or the NBA Superfan package. Man, it's a car payment. You know what I'm saying? It's rough. It's like 2 and change, man. I'm telling you, it's tough. But I hear you.
It's around about $35 or something for this streaming service per month, and it's got 2 different packages, I should say, and people can't pay that money, you know, and it's just ridiculous. And until Cricket Australia do something about it, but you know, I doubt it. You know, it's probably going to be the same for forever, I think. You got to move with the times, I suppose. It was great with that television network because you heard those great voices, as I just mentioned. And Nick and Gabe, you should search them up because they are good commentators. They, you know, because people will say, oh, you've heard Richie Bena's commentary, you know, and Bill Laurie and Tony Gregg, Ian Chappell. You know, I grew up with these guys. And sadly, that's no more, obviously, because obviously they're getting on a bit, obviously age, but that's just the way the world is. And summer in Australia has lost that a little bit because you don't have that nostalgia, you know, that sort of feeling about it. It's sort of lost that soul a bit, cricket here in Australia, because it was on that channel for so long. And all of a sudden you've done something else and it sort of interrupted the flow of the summer. We'll see what happens in the future, but hopefully Cricket Australia can consult the fans first. That's the thing about cricket boards don't do. They don't consult the fans. They don't do consultation or surveys or whatever. Would you like to do this? No, they just go ahead and do it because they think, oh, we know best. We sit here in a boardroom. We know best. This is going to benefit you. It's not.
ICC, Cricket Australia, NFL, NBA, no sport actually cares about the fans. They just don't. All right. They're going to do whatever they want to do, whatever's more profitable for them. And it's sad, but listen, I've seen so much of it over the years where they made the game inaccessible really to fans. And it's a frustrating thing, but you know, it is what it is. It's really, it's a futile battle because it's not going to, the amount of money these TV contracts are, and I'm not sure about cricket, but I know, for instance, the Yankees deal is $210 million. $210 million. That's a season. That's big dough. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, no more free TV and only Yes Network, man. It is what it is.
It is what it is. But, for those who don't have free-to-air TV here in Australia, it's a bit of a disadvantage. Because I only got the streaming service to watch cricket matches from other sides of the world. Because really, I don't have pay TV, I have free-to-air TV. So that allows me to watch cricket from all parts of the world. But, for a normal summer, if you want to watch a game of cricket on TV, you might as well go to the ground and watch a game at the ground. But some people can't afford that because ticket prices are too high. And obviously with the current situation at the moment, caps on crowds and that. So, yeah, it's just, you can't
Well,
win.
I just read Australia is under lockdown. Is the area that you're in under lockdown currently?
No, we're okay. Where I'm from, we're okay. But the other states in Australia are in lockdown or coming out of lockdown. Some have come out of lockdown. I think one of them's still in lockdown. Obviously, I haven't been keeping up with the news because I don't watch the news all that much. But where I'm from, I'm safe. We're pretty good. We've contained it well. Other parts of Australia is a bit, on edge. But, obviously that's all politics stuff. And it's a bit controversial here in Australia if you mention that word, lockdown. So I don't want to get into that. It's political. I
told you how to get you in trouble. It had to be me. It Nick.
It had to be you, Gabe. It had to be. Nah, that's all right. Nah, but really, it's all political and that. But the main thing is that everyone's safe and obviously doing well. Obviously in America, how's the situation there? Is it good? Obviously, I know that you're getting back to normal over there.
It's getting back to normal. Each state's a little different for the most part, but here locally, the news will tell you it's getting worse and worse. And yes, some of the new cases numbers have gone up to numbers they were in February, but still nothing like what we had to experience in the wintertime when it was just like extreme and crazy. So it makes, your ears perk up a little bit because if you're vaccinated here in the US, most states, I'm assuming, has adopted that policy. You can go into most businesses besides medical and whatnot without a mask on. And that's like such a nice thing to be able to do. You have to limit some crowds, but it's not nearly as much as before. Stadiums, most are at full capacity now. So things are getting back to normal. And when you hear numbers go up a little bit and it's not drastic, but it's just a little bit, then you start getting nervous. Like we don't want to go back to where it was before. But I would say locally, it's okay. It's better than it was last year, but this COVID thing, unfortunately, I don't think is going to go away anytime soon. I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But we don't have to get too much into that because all that kind of stuff's depressed. I think everyone's over that. We just focus on the cricket.
That's right. But the more important thing is that if we can send a message out, do the right thing, keep safe, protect yourself, protect your others. We're all in the same boat all around the world. It's unfortunate, but we've got to kick on and be resilient, be tough, and just get through it.
It's crazy that the entire world is facing this. Like, it's crazy that there's something going on that the entire world, I mean, you're in Australia, halfway across the world, more than halfway across the world, depending on what direction you're going in, and experiencing the same exact thing. So it's, I would say one of the positives would be, all of us can relate to one another, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, it is. And obviously it makes it tough for sport as well. In cricket, that's been a big part. Traveling in cricket, you've got to travel and that's interrupted, as we've had for the last year and a bit, in the scheduling and the international calendar. But anyway, going back to cricket and talking about that. So you created Cricket Tuesdays, which led to Cricket for Americans and to what it is now. Over 10,000 subscribers and counting, which is a fantastic effort. So you've really built up the supporter base. Everyone who supports you, subscribes, goes on the live streams, you interact with them. They all love cricket. That's what cricket's about.
Absolutely.
It's about bringing people together. It's a global game. Doesn't matter where you're from, doesn't matter what background you're from, you can play cricket. If you have a disability, you can play cricket. And there's, you know, cricket there for disabled people, which is great, fantastic. Obviously, with all that, what stood out the most for you watching cricket in that time? What's really stood out for you the most? If you had a moment that stood out.
Oh, it's like a specific moment.
Yeah.
For me, easily, and I'm sorry to say this, but it was the breach of the GABA. I mean, Rishabh Pant going around, and I'm not Indian. I root for Team India. We have Born Reviews, so we have literally thousands of people, viewers that we interact with every week that we love and we appreciate. So I feel a kinship to India and to the people from India. So to see them like running around in that field with that flag, and not in a disrespectful way to Australia, but just in a way where like these young guns, Rishabh Pant, Lord Siraj, all that kind of stuff going around and getting that win, that moment, that euphoria, that kind of situation was quite incredible. And I would say most cricket fans in Australia, even though it sucked and it stunk to have that happen to them, I think even they would say, yeah, that was a remarkable series and that was a remarkable match, and one of many matches because they went into it down so many people. And I remember sitting there like so down and dejected, like they're not even going to get a chance to win this match. It's not fair. And I mean, that was, if I had to choose a moment, that would be mine.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. It was I watched that series from start to finish, and I was pulling out my hair literally with Australia.
When you get older, your hair will do that for itself. Don't worry.
Well, luckily it's still, you know, no grays at the moment, so that's good.
There you go. Yeah,
I'm very young. So, Gabe, your standout moment in the time you've been watching cricket?
You know, it's crazy. I'm a test guy. I love test, and you know, I mean, that Australia series is unbelievable. But for me, the one thing that was the craziest was seeing, you know, Pollard right after, what team were they playing?
Sri Lanka.
Was it Sri Lanka?
Yeah, they were playing Sri Lanka.
Yeah, it was
Jayasuriya? Is that how you say his name?
Yes,
no.
Yes. I think
that's their legend. I can never think of the guy's name. Anyways,
yeah.
Dan Jaya, I think it was Dan Jaya.
I think that's what his name. So he gets the hat trick. And it was my first hat trick, you know, watching it. I'm super excited about it. But it's against my West Indies. And I'm like, you know what I mean? Whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking it's awesome that I'm seeing a hat trick and I got to see that milestone. But then, you know, my team is getting crushed. And then Pollard just 36, you know, every ball. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it now. And seeing that epic, you know, that's what you love about the game. You know what I'm saying? That it's never over till it's over. And, you know, you can go from being the hero 1 over as he was to being the GOAT the next over and losing the game. And it's a game of beauty for me. Like I said, I'm more of a test guy, but that was in limited overs. But that was just the most exciting thing I've seen.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. Test cricket is the pinnacle of cricket. Essentially, it's the oldest form of cricket since 1877, when Australia and England first played the first Test, until now. It is. For me, I always loved Test cricket. That's how I got into cricket. I love the battle. I love the ebbs and flows. I call it like a game of chess. You make one move, the opposition makes another move. And before you know it, checkmate, you've lost. The opposition's won or something like that. But when you lose a session, you can come back. You know, it's not over in a Test match.
Right.
You know, 3 sessions, you lose one, you come back in the next one. And before you know it, like that, the game's back in your favour. That's what we saw in the WTC Final with India and New Zealand. The ebbs and flows of that game. That's probably one of the best Test matches I've seen for a while. And that's what cricket is. It's never over till it's over. Many people say, oh, it's over. They can't win this. Rubbish. You got to believe. There's no point in, you got to believe.
An Australia fan, you know, I'm from the Caribbean, so I'm a West Indies fan, but Australia is my adopted team. And as an Australia fan, I was texting Nick, and after India went out 36 all out, I'm like, it's over, cousin. You're done. You know what I mean? Yeah. Oh my gosh, it was not over. So
it wasn't over, that's for sure. It was,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, unbelievable. So that's the talking about yourselves bit done. Let's get into the discussion, shall we?
Sure.
So our first discussion point today is the World Test Championship final. Talking about that. That was a great game. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the improvements for the next cycle in 2021-23 and beyond. And obviously, Nick and Gabe, you did it R3 wickets on the WTC. But before we get to that, your thoughts on the final in general?
I think that, and Gabe had alluded to this earlier, I think there's two different things to talk about. Talk about the game itself and then talk about all the organization beforehand. I think that it's really cool that we have a WTC. And I think it's awesome that it started relatively new in our cricket watching career. The game itself, I did not think there was going to be a result. And the fact that there was a result was fantastic. The fact that you have new guys like Devin Conway, you have guys who will still be there for a while like Kane Williamson. You have, I'm going to forget his name, the guy that got a half century. It's probably his last test match is going to hit. Who's the legend from New Zealand that was batting there with King Williamson?
Ross Taylor.
Thank you, Ross. The fact that he's probably going to go out, or he's going to go out as a champion, but that's probably going to be his last match.
He's not retiring, Nick.
He's not?
He's
I heard that was his last
on.
one.
I read it somewhere that he's still going on.
Oh, wow.
He wants to go on for a bit.
For tests? He's going to continue with tests?
Yeah. Or any format. But if he gives up one, probably prolong his career. But he's a legend of New Zealand cricket, Ross Taylor.
Right.
And he will go down as one of the legends. Yeah.
But the fact, and you get the young kid, Kyle Jamieson, who I did not think was going to be on the side in the test WTC. The fact that they were able to do what they did. And as a fan of India, I wish I could make an excuse for this or that, or it's not fair, or it's this or that. There were no excuses. New Zealand were the better team. They didn't dominate, but at the end, it looked like they dominated by the way they outlasted and they were able to chase and all that kind of stuff. So it was an incredible match, and it was incredible that New Zealand, with all the odds stacked against them, with the situation, the rain, they were able to get that result. But the organization of it, like Gabe said earlier, was somewhat laughable because you have a 2-year buildup where you have all these matches, you have all these series planned, you have everything planned. You know you're going to get to a final, COVID or not, hook or by crook, we're going to get to this final. And I know people say you can't change things last minute. I don't care about that. If you're alluding to 2 years and you're going to that climax, it's like watching a movie. You don't want the climax to be like, really? That was it? A 1-second fight where the guy punches him one time and it's over? You want to have that climax, and you don't want anything to get in the way of it. So the match was fantastic. It was good cricket, but they've got to do better as far as setting up for that ultimate showdown. Absolutely.
Gabe, your thoughts on the final in general?
In general, I think that the two best teams were there. I personally trash talked New Zealand, and this is before I knew what a New Zealand was, because I had literally just saw New Zealand, and most of their wins were at home. They struggled in the South, in subcontinent, and I was like, other than Kane Williamson, I really didn't. I mean, I saw Devin Conway's debut, right? So no one knew who Devin Conway was. Obviously, South Africa didn't know who Devin Conway was. Just saying, right? But it's one of those things where I'm looking at the names in India and looking at the names in New Zealand, and I'm thinking to myself, no way. And the first, even Kane Williamson, and that's what tells you the difference between test and limited format. Watching Kane Williamson play in the IPL, he was average. He was pedestrian. Honestly, he was. He just, go back and look at that season. So I was like, this team, really? And then they played Australia and they played the West Indies, and holy cow, I knew India was in trouble because this team is stacked. first and foremost, their fundamentals, no other team fields like they do. Whether it's England, Australia, West Indies, India, I don't care. They are fundamentally sound, where they do not give up. They don't turn a single into a double, or, you know what I'm saying? You don't see too many leg buys by them. You just don't see too many drop catches. I said, it's like they got 1,000 fielders out there. It's so frustrating, but they're really fundamental at their fielding. And I was super impressed with Devin Conway and Kane Williamson. And the difference is the skill that it takes to play test, where you can maintain throughout. Where, okay, I'm not going to come out and score a half century in, 5 overs, you know what I'm saying? Or 10 overs. But I'm going to wear you out. And I'm going to be here eating up deliveries until you get tired and that ball loses its shine, and then I'm going to do damage. And not all guys have that kind of patience to, take on those pacers or even those wibbly wobblies, right? Where they don't have a lot of patience, but I'm not going to get myself out. And their patience, I had to eat my words. I was wrong. Not to take away from India. Their team is phenomenal, but New Zealand's test squad, and especially in those conditions, I think it is the best in the world. I mean, gosh, Kane Williamson, could I have been more wrong? I'm like, this guy, was trash in the IPL. He was pedestrian. And I think the first time I saw him play live, he scored like 200 on my West Indies or something like that. I was like, are you kidding me?
I don't think he was ever trash in the IPL. The IPL T20 is a different animal because he always bats 3, 4, 5, usually 4 or 5. So you're not always going to get in a match. And if you do, it's going to be, maybe 12, 15 balls where you're not going to do too much. But I think when we saw him being there earlier than expected because the other guys got out, he held his own pretty well. But to Gabe's point, we didn't see any New Zealand the first several months of our live streaming career. They just weren't playing. It wasn't their season yet. So
yeah, that's right. And obviously my thoughts on the final, it was probably one of the best test matches I've seen in a long time. I've seen quite a few over my journey. Some brilliant test matches I can name off the top of my head. But this one, regardless of the weather, putting that to one side, luckily we got a result, thank goodness. And New Zealand deserved to win, proudly deserved to win. They played the better cricket than India. India sort of lost it on that last day. We'll get into that a bit later. But what I thought was it's good fashioned, old-fashioned test match cricket. Grind it out, fight it, wear the bowlers down as a batsman, the bowlers be patient, and wickets will come in those conditions. And a low-scoring game is often the best game. I like the low-scoring test matches because it's so close. It's on a knife edge. You don't know who's going to win. I hate it when test matches, get a flat pitch. You play 500 plays 400 or something like that. It's boring. You know who's going to win. It's probably going to be a draw. One team's going to win. The other team has no chance. Whereas in this test match, all 3 possible results, to be realistic, 2 were only possible, New Zealand winning and a draw. India's chances were slim heading into that last day. But still possible for them to win. You never say never in test matches. And if weird things have happened, batting collapse, New Zealand batting last, batting collapse, they could have lost. They lost 2 wickets, but Williamson and Taylor stood their ground and guided them home, chasing down 139 to win in the end. It only takes one good innings from one good batsman or one good partnership to chase down a low total in a run chase in Test cricket. And the pitch was starting to be pretty good for batting because the sun was coming out. Finally, rarity in England, the sun coming out, baking the pitch. In India's team selection, picking 2 spinners in those conditions, question mark. It was sort of a team that was set up for Indian conditions. You play 2 spinners in India, that's a given. Not in England. The pitches don't turn as much in England. A little bit of turn, yes, but not much. So probably they could have used Mohammad Siraj in there. And that's what I talked about in my final review on my channel. Is in hindsight's a wonderful thing. But they could have gone with Siraj as that extra option because the bowlers, let's be honest, they were short of a gallop Really? Lack of preparation. You're playing intra-squad games among yourselves. That's not really preparing you for a test match, because you can't really replicate the pressure of a test match in the nets. You just can't. Only until you play the game. That's the real pressure on there. Because you're bowling, their bowlers are bowling to their batsmen. So their batsmen are used to their bowlers. They're not facing different bowlers like in a tour game, like a first class game. You need to face variation, different bowlers. Whereas you're facing the same bowlers like you have done in the nets time and time again. You know, whatever you do doesn't mean anything. There's no consequences. You get out in that game, doesn't matter. You get out in a test match, it does matter. You know, you score runs. You know, Rishabh Pant scored a century in that intra-squad game. That doesn't mean anything. You know, that doesn't mean anything. It means something if you score a century in the test match. So what I'm trying to say is lack of preparation, because the IPL was on and that got postponed due to obvious reasons, as you all know. And it's going to be resuming later on this year in September in the UAE. So their last test match, India, was in March against England when they won that series. So then you play IPL, most of the bowlers are bowling 4 overs. That's not much. In test matches, you've got to back up spell after spell. You know, it takes a lot out of you, and they were short of a gallop. You could see that lack of preparation. That's why you saw in the New Zealand innings, the tailenders were able to score runs against them, because you could see the signs of fatigue was starting to show on the Indian bowlers, because they just didn't have the overs in the legs. And it's like, you got to play a competitive match. It's like Trent Boult. He didn't play the first match against England, but he said to the New Zealand management, he said, you know, let me play the second test, you know, because I'm not going to go into the World Test Championship final, the biggest game of our lives, underdone, because I'm not going to be useful to the team. You might as well not pick me then, because I don't deserve my spot. So obviously that's because of the scheduling, because, you know, the scheduling's been a mess in international cricket for some time. These days, you don't have tour games before you begin series. You used to have that back in the old days in cricket. Not anymore, because there's so much cricket going on now, compared back into the 90s, for example, where you didn't play much, as a lot of cricket now with T20 cricket and all that. So that's why the preparation for India was poor. But, you know, that's not an excuse. I'm not saying that's it, you know, India won't say that's an excuse. We just didn't play well. But it does have a bit of an impact. And you did see that, especially in the second innings, where the game was gone. They knew it was gone. And the body language was gone. You know, the shoulders slumped back. You know, Ashwin got those 2 wickets. They were on a high. But then they were like, we're not going to win this game. So really for me, you know, it's very important to play a proper match before a test match. But you just don't see it these days. And that was the thing going into this WTC final for India. That was their biggest disadvantage. You know, New Zealand were clearly advantaged by playing 2 test matches against England, and it showed in their performance. And
such an interesting take. I haven't really heard too many people mention that. And, you know, I should have probably picked up on that sooner, because we actually have the same thing in American sports here, where, let's say NBA finals, for instance, right? Usually one team ends up sweeping another team and getting to the finals. So now they're rested for whatever. They come in that first game cold. You know what I mean? They come in not having played, and they can drop a game. Same thing happens in baseball. The Yankees used to happen to my Yankees all the time. They would sweep their series in the ALCS, and then they would make it to the World Series. And now we got to sit for 10 days or 8 days, whatever it may be. So that was a disadvantage, and I didn't even think about that. And I think that you're right. That's poor preparation, not on the players, but on the management, by not, you know, scheduling another match, knowing, hey, we're going to be going into this test match. We don't want to send our guys out there. Another thing, and talking about the format, kind of wrap up this conversation, you know, test is a series of games, right? Not just a one-off test match. So how do you feel about, and you're talking about any future changes, I would like to see at the very minimum a 3-set test match, because, you know, you can easily drop that first test match and come and win the second two. India is notorious for dropping that first test match and then coming back and winning the other two. And I think that what I do love about tests so much is it's a war of attrition. It's not about just one day or one game. It's about lasting the long haul. That's what I love about baseball. Baseball's 162 games regular season, and then you get into the playoffs, all right? And if you're going to go to the World Series, you're playing another 20 plus games. So 180 games, all right? It's a war of attrition. And to make it from a test series to just a one-off test match, I think it takes a little bit away from the game. But that's just my opinion. I want to know your thoughts on that.
My thoughts on that? Yeah. My thoughts is I agree what you say, Gabe, and Nick in that R3 wickets when you said ICC, you need to do 3 test matches. Most people agree with that. I agree with that. But here's my take on it. And I've got an article in front of me. And the ICC have said, in a perfect world, these are these words, the ICC's words, in a perfect world, a 3-test series would be great, a great way to decide the WTC. But the reality of the international cricket schedule is we are not going to have, but the reality of the international cricket schedule is we are just not going to have a situation where blocking out a month or so for all teams in the tournament for the final is realistic. That's what the ICC have said. They would like to have it, but they said we can't block out a month in the schedule because the schedule is so broken in international cricket. They would like a 3-game final. They've said they will like it, but they don't want it. They're not doing it. So they've said that's why we're sticking with 1. It just shows.
So frustrating to me because it's, why are we having the WTC? What is the purpose? Is it so that cricket fans and cricketing world and these different boards can know who's the best test team every 4 years? I don't know what the format is. Every 3 or 4 years?
Every 2 years.
Every 2 years. There you go.
WTC. Yeah.
What is the purpose? Or is it something that you can sell tickets to? Because I understand the IPL was supposed to go till end of May, early June, and it got delayed. Okay, so they didn't schedule a test series for India before the WTC. But I know New Zealand they ended their series, I think, 4 days before the WTC started with England. They got 2 test matches. What was the purpose of scheduling that? Because I don't believe that's part of the WTC going forward.
It wasn't.
Right?
Because
and it wasn't part of the previous WTC. Maybe it was some traditional New Zealand always plays England at this time of year for
the reason for that, Nick, is because the ECB did it for their summer. It was a late addition to the English summer. You often see it in, a late addition. Oh, we just play a couple of test matches, because really what England are thinking about is about long term. The more test matches they play, because they've got the Ashes later on this year, as we all know. So that's what, more test matches. Yeah, sure, it wasn't a part of the WTC. Some series are not a part of the WTC.
Right.
Okay.
No, I get that. They have, I think, 6 series each for each team that's qualified.
Well, I've got it in front of me here.
But real quick, let me just finish my thought real quick there.
Sorry, yep.
My point is this. What is the point of having it? Is it just to sell tickets for a 1 test match, 5 or 6 days of fun? Yay, we have a champion. Or do you really want to know who's the best? Or should the WTC just be all 1 test match in each series? I mean, that's not usually how it goes. So if you want to have that WTC and you're saying you can't schedule it, then make it a 3-year affair so you can schedule a 1-month block where you have those 2 teams playing against each other. For me, that'd be my rebuttal to it. I think that just sounds like a kind of a lazy excuse, but at least they addressed it somewhat.
Yes, it is. Just addressing why we have it is to add context and relevance to Test cricket. You played a bilateral series before this WTC came about, didn't mean anything. Only a handful of ICC ranking points, and that's it. And a trophy. Because some series that you play don't mean anything. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but something like the Ashes, for example, you're fighting for something. You're playing towards something. The ICC wanted to create that when they started this WTC. is to add context and relevance to Test cricket, to make every game count, home and away, to decide who's the best team in the world. The ICC wanted a World Cup for Test cricket, and they've got that. You're going to have some teething problems. People are not going to like what's happened in this first edition. But personally, my thoughts on it is that I like it because it adds relevance. You need something for the players to fight for, not just rocking up and playing a series and that's it. You go home and then you play the next series. It's about adding that context and relevance. And going back to what the ICC said, we would like to play 3 finals. They said they would like to do that, but they're not going to because the international schedule is just so compacted. They know the schedule is compacted because they come up with the schedule in the Future Tours program, which they program every 2 years, and they assign series to all the teams for the 2-year block. That's how it works. And you can see it on their website. If you go on the ICC's website, you can see the Future Tours program up there. They know the fixture of the international calendar, I should say, is compacted. There's so much cricket on. It's been broken for a very long time. They know the problem. They don't want to address it because they feel like, we'll just... I read somewhere, it's like the WTC is like a plaster covering over the scheduling to make it better.
Yeah, right.
That's what I saw and read. So for me, it's great because it's adding that relevance to Test cricket, which you need. This year was interrupted, obviously, due to obvious reasons. But it would be ideal to play three Test matches. You can put a month out to do that.
Absolutely.
Of course you can. After a 2-year period, who's going to be playing cricket, in that month, if you put it aside, for example? They still don't know where the final is going to be held in 2 years' time. They haven't decided that. Probably it's going to be at Lord's for 2 years. For the next 2 years, it's probably going to be at Lord's or somewhere else. I've heard people say, share it around, or whoever wins, let them host the final. But then you're going to have a situation where what happens if New Zealand wins, but it's in New Zealand? Then you have to move it somewhere else because you've got to have it at a neutral venue, you see.
Right.
So it's a good idea, but it's like a school report card. I'm sure Nick and Gabe, you as teachers, probably you've written this comment many times. You can do better. You could do better. The ICC could do better.
Right.
Because their form at the moment, it's like a grade F. They're the governing body of cricket. They should take on feedback from everyone and from the fans, but they don't want to listen to it. And obviously the next cycle is going to be England and India next month to kick things off for the next cycle.
Right.
But the thing is that they've only got 9 teams in this next cycle. They haven't got Afghanistan, Ireland, and Zimbabwe. And what really ticks me off, sorry if I'm going to rant here, but, doing one of your rants, Gabe, at the ICC, you should not call it a World Test Championship if you do not include the 12 full member nations of the ICC. You might as well call it a Test Championship. To me, it's not a World Test Championship. Everyone has a right. Afghanistan, Ireland, Zimbabwe, especially Afghanistan and Ireland, they've worked hard to get Test status.
Right.
You know how hard that is to get? And I've seen a documentary about Afghanistan cricket from where they came from until now. Well, in the early days.
Right.
And they've worked hard. They love their cricket. They're enthusiastic. Rashid Khan, I've seen Rashid Khan for the Adelaide Strikers in the Big Bash because I go and watch Big Bash games at the Adelaide Oval and I see him bowl live. He's a brilliant guy. He's sort of the flag bearer for Afghanistan cricket. But if you're going to deny him and these other countries Test cricket because they don't play enough Test cricket, that's the bottom line, because they don't have that in the schedule. Because for example, Nick and Gabe, that's the bottom line, is that they don't play enough cricket. And it's just absolutely unacceptable, in my opinion. They should play more cricket.
Sounds like we're like-minded there, because The ICC drives me crazy too. Their decisions drive me crazy. You know, it's the WTC drives me crazy. And I think in general, kind of to wrap up this part of the conversation, in all sports, the biggest issue is you don't have true fans running these leagues. You have corporate guys in suits and ties that probably never played the game or don't have a real vested interest in the game other than, you know, to Nick's point, how many tickets are we selling? How many TV spots are we selling? How many sponsors are we getting? That's all they care about. And you see that here. I mean, for me, sports died, and I mean died, when they went to a TV timeout during the Super Bowl. This is the biggest game in American sports, the most viewed game, and stoppage of play. And don't tell me there's nothing about momentum. All right, I've been to many games. The other team's on their heels, they're tired, they're huffing and puffing. Timeout. What do you mean TV timeout? Are you kidding me? We got to get a commercial in. What? That just, you know what I mean? And that's the problem. You don't have people that are truly passionate about about whatever game it is, actually running these governing bodies.
That's right. So that's a perfect way to get into our next cricket discussion, and it's about Australian cricket. Ooh. Australian cricket's been in sort of an up and down state of late. And Gabe, you did a cricket convo on Australian cricket. I'll get your thoughts on that. Is Australia in crisis, Gabe?
You know, I think it's not about necessarily being in crisis, but, and I'm, you know, here it goes, man. A couple more subs you're going to lose. I think it's time to take a hard look at who's helming the ship. You know what I mean? And I don't think that JL currently has that team. So you got to be able to command your team. If you're a coach or manager in the sport, you got to be able to command the team, and you've got to be able to command the respect of the troops. And right now, they're just in a very, very bad place as a team, not just because of injuries, but because obviously we know a lot of the drama that's happened as well. And I mean, to me, I think some of the decisions, like leaving off Uzi, I don't understand that. I read on the Cricket Australia that he had scored like a century or something like that, or 2 centuries back to back before they made their selection for that New Zealand test, and not the New Zealand test, and they left them off. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm just like, just politics. And I think that, you know, it may be time to move on from the current management and the current, you know, coaching staff. That's just my opinion. Mind you, guys, I'm saying the same thing, and Nick will tell you right now about the Yankees. Fire everybody. Get rid of Aaron Boone, because you know you've got talented players there. When you got a Patty Cummings, when you got a Warner, when you got these guys, you've got talented players. So if you got a talented bunch of guys that helped you get to the win the Ashes or retain the Ashes, as I say 2 years ago, what's the common denomination? What's changed there? You know what I mean? And I think it starts at the top, but that's just my opinion.
Yes, that's right. They have been it's consistency in all formats. Last summer wasn't a great summer in the test matches. We didn't go to South Africa, you know, off the field stuff as well. Justin Langer has just recently addressed the players about those concerns, and he felt it was pretty confronting. But he said it was a good thing to do, and we're on the right track to, you know, start building the relationship again, which is very important. You know, all the players back him. Aaron Finch, before they went off to the West Indies, said, yeah, we're 100% JL. You know, we're going to back him. He's grumpy. You know, that's just the way he is. But he needs to address those problems going forward. And that's what he does. Also, Australia, about their management, probably a change of selectors is required. The current selectors, obviously, one of them's been in there for a long time, Trevor Holmes, former player of Australia. He's been there for a while. Maybe get him out, get someone else who understands this modern era a bit more, someone who's from this current generation, which they do in George Bailey. They've done a review, Cricket Australia, into what happened last summer, you know, about where can we improve and all that stuff. Also, the captaincy debate after Tim Payne retires, who's going to take over? Is it going to be Steve Smith or Pat Cummins? I think it should be Pat Cummins. I don't think it should be Steve Smith because, if you want to move away from Cape Town and what happened there, and everybody wants to, but you can't shut the door on that completely. I don't think picking Steve Smith's the right option because people still have their, thoughts about what happened in Cape Town. They're not really too sure about him as captain. Pat Cummins has captained New South Wales domestically. The next thing for him is to captain in first class cricket. And then obviously he'll take over in the test side. That's if Tim Payne decides to retire after this Ashes series later on this year. He can play on for another year if he wants. It's up to him. But for me, captaincy doesn't sit well with some people. It doesn't sit well with Steve Smith. It's like Sachin Tendulkar from India. He was captain of India. It didn't sit well with him because it interrupted his career. He was in a form slump. He wasn't really winning games. So I think when we do move away from Payne, we need to go into a different direction and a different captain, different, objective and goals for the team going forward. Justin Langer's contract doesn't expire until mid-2022. And he said he wants to coach beyond that. Depends on this summer. If the results go his way, then who knows? He may not last that long. But really, I like JL. I like what he's doing. Yeah, sure. He's not perfect. No one's perfect. He's trying his best. He's the coach. It's a tough job. But I think for Australian cricket, we just need to find our identity again. I think we need to stop worrying about being liked and just play cricket after what happened in Cape Town, because that's what we've been doing. We're focusing on being liked again. People will make their own minds up about that. You can't force people to like you. So you've got to really, just play cricket. Just focus on that. Your thoughts on that, Nick? Do you think Australian cricket's in crisis or?
I have a few thoughts about Australia cricket, and some of them come from a video that we reacted to about people, commentators, sportcasters in Australia talking about it. And it seems like there's a consensus that the 18 or 20 guys that are invited to each tour are like the only guys in Australia that can play test cricket. Like there are no other guys. And that kind of concerns me. You talk about going in a different direction. When you go into a different direction, we can call it rebuilding, whatever you want. People don't understand how painful that is for the first few years. Lots of growing pains when you go in a different direction, because if you're having a different mindset or a different situation, or you're going to say goodbye to some of maybe the aging guys. I'm not saying David Warner's an old man, but he has some off the field stuff. He has some kind of this or that. He's had some alien injuries or whatever. If you're going to go away from some of those guys, you're going to be finding yourself with those growing pains. But I'm a believer, growing pains bring the future success. If you keep doing the same thing that you're doing with the same guys, and I'm not talking about the Steve Smiths and the Pat Cummins and Mitchell Starks, they can stick around as long as they want, the Hazelwoods. I'm talking about the other guys that maybe are in and out. It's very challenging, but it seems like to me, living way far away from Australia, that a lot of Australian fans may not be too confident in who would they call upon. Gabe mentioned it, Uzi. I haven't heard his name mentioned myself, at least, even getting a chance. So I'm sure Australia's got the players in the domestic leagues and this or that can step up, that can get that chance. Maybe you talked about the selectors. It just seems like someone needs to decide what the direction is for Cricket Australia and then to move in that direction. Because if nothing else, Australia's proven that they've always been able to bring up very, very talented players. Those are my few thoughts.
That's right. And just finishing off about that, it is a very few testing months for Australia. If they don't do well in the T20 World Cup, well, really people more focusing on the Ashes and what we do there. But for the team, as I said, it's just about trying to play cricket, not being liked. People will make their own minds up. And Cricket Australia have lost their priorities in a way. We should be really focusing on this, clean up the dead garbage, the dead weight, get some new people in, some new ideas. Because I care about Australian cricket and where the team's going. You know, I forgive the team for what happened in Cape Town. All right, I you know, obviously it was a horrible mistake. Smith, Warner, and Bancroft. But for Australia, you know, it's time to move on. It's like 3 years or something now. You know, I just want to watch cricket, and the team should just focus about playing cricket. Obviously, media reports about Justin Langer, the confrontation with the players. Look, really, do you believe that stuff? What do you believe in the media? All that stuff. I don't read the media, the papers or anything like that. But really, you know, let's just get on with playing cricket and trying to focus winning games for Australia. That should be Australia's goal, to be the best team in the world and to win games. Forget about the off-field stuff. That will happen naturally. People will criticize you and hate you with fans and all that stuff. Just get on with the job and playing cricket. And the players need to know that as well. Take responsibility for your performances. Learn from them going forward to be better. Do the work. People will praise you if you play good cricket. And that's the bottom line for Australia.
Yeah, win is a cure-all, man. Win is a cure-all. And all they got to do is win, and all those other problems go away. And I think that, you know, you hit the nail on the head. It's like they're still trying to fight the shadow or the demons of Cape Town. Look, that's in the rear view, man. And for fans too, if you're a fan of Australian cricket, it's in the rear view. Guess what? It's not the first cheating scandal in cricket or any sport, because every sport had them. It's not going to be the last. That's just the unfortunate price we pay, because these athletes are under tremendous pressure. They absolutely are. And sometimes they, you know, go against their better judgment to try to get an edge. Okay. Does that mean they're horrible people or horrible human beings? Absolutely not. It's, again, many of the men have gone down that road. And I think that redemption comes in being able to play the game the right way and win again. So I'm looking forward to seeing them win again. Absolutely.
Now moving on to, well, probably the biggest rivalry in cricket. You would agree, Nick and Gabe, and obviously you've just reacted to the Ashes, of course. I'm talking about the Ashes, of course. I'm talking about this little guy right here. The Ashes urn. This is what it's all about in Ashes cricket. So let's talk about the Ashes. Nick and Gabe, you reacted to the 05 Ashes series. You just finished that finally. It took a while. What were your thoughts from that amazing series? That's why you're sort of thinking, wow, now I know why people say that this is the best series that ever was in an Ashes series.
It's all about the passion. I mean, you said it yourself. It's not part of the WTC, or maybe it is now part of the WTC. I'm not sure.
I guess it is.
Made that official WTC eyes. But before that, it was that rivalry. I mean, no one else is invited. That's the thing that blew me away when I first learned about it. Like, no one, this is England and Australia going toe to toe. It's like a prize fight or something. And it's 5 matches. It's not a 3-match thing or a 2, or it's 5 matches. And I mean, when we were watching the test, you know, just the pride of just retaining the Ashes, right? Just really, well, at least we retained it, for crying out loud. That was phenomenal to see. But I mean, it's back and forth. It's okay. You won the first match. I mean, it's incredible. And I don't know, you can tell me more about this. I don't get the sense that these two teams, the players, at least the current players, hate each other. But I know the rivalries, I know the fan bases, and it's probably more of a love-hate thing, but it's just, it's Yankees, Red Sox, you know? I mean, it's just these huge rivalries. It's Manchester and what's the other one? I can't think of it right now, the football club, but those are huge rivalries that are in sports, and it's great to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excited to experience our first.
You know, that's what the Ashes is about. You know, as a kid growing up, you look forward to an Ashes series. You know, I've seen many series where Australia's lost in England, and up until 2019, we finally won, and I was like, you know, I'm glad I saw that, because the last one was in 2001 by Steve Waugh. Many great moments in Ashes cricket, and Nick and Gabe. The one documentary I would suggest that you should watch is called Forged in Fire. I've got a DVD on it. It's about the Ashes. It was made by Cricket Australia. They commissioned it by this guy. So I think you can get it on Amazon, I think. I'm not sure. But if you can access it, please watch that. You will learn more about the Ashes in that video, in that documentary.
I'll definitely check it out. I mean, for me, it was I tell you what, it was a great watch, and just the history of the game, the passion of the Ashes it's amazing, and it's on my bucket list. That's one of the things I'm gonna do. And it's funny, you know, I've got a couple sporting events. I mean, I've already been to an NFL divisional championship. I got to see my Giants beat San Francisco the year they won the Super Bowl, and gonna go to a baseball World Series. Still haven't done that, and gonna go to the Ashes, man. I'm gonna go to the Ashes. I'll plan my trip to England because the wife wants to go around the year, you know, when the Ashes are gonna be held at England or whatnot. And do it strategically that way. I'll do it strategically that way. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's in another 4 years. It's every 4 years, alternating between Australia and England. So the last series here was in 2017-18. So it's every 4 years. And it comes around so quickly. But going back to amazing moments in the Ashes, you've got amazing Adelaide 2006-7, Shane Warne's ball of the century in 93. Shane Warne's hat trick. I know you've reacted to that. His hat trick at the MCG in 94-95. You know, the Australian team in 1989 that started that great dynasty. They were called the worst side to tour England, and they won 4-0 out of 6. Because back then they played 6 test matches in the Ashes. 2 of them were washed off because of rain. They won 4-0. And then that started the dynasty up until 2005. Then you've got Headingley 1981 with Ian Botham, who smashed a century after England were asked to follow on. And he single-handedly got England back in the match. And Bob Willis, the late great Bob Willis, he's no longer with us. He got 8 wickets. He bowled like the wind. He got 8 wickets. You should check that out. Headingley 2019, the test documentary, Ben Stokes, what an innings. Unbelievable. Steve Waugh, his last ball century at the SCG in 2002-03, his last ever Ashes test. And Australia won that series, obviously. His last ball at the SCG, as I said, Steve Waugh's 100 at the Oval. He tore his calf. He batted on one leg in 2001. And there's a picture of him diving for a quick single to get the century. You know, look it up. And popping his helmet up. He's just on the ground. He lifts his bat up. You know, that's Steve Waugh in a nutshell. He was a fighter. He was a stubborn cricketer, but, you know, that's what the Ashes is about. Shane Warne's 700th wicket at the MCG, his last ever test. He announced his retirement in that test match. So you know, Australia winning 5-0 in 2006-7 after losing the Ashes in 05. 5-0 in 2013-14 by Australia at home. You know, not winning the Ashes from 2009 to win it. That was a special series, and I have great memories of that series. You know, the Invincibles, 1948, Don Bradman. You talked about him in a cricket convo. Great man. Got a book about him. Great batsman. He led the 1948 Invincibles. Never lost the game in that series. They played all the counties, played the Ashes, never lost the game, and they won. The Ashes. Never lost the game. Great side. There's only one surviving member left. That's Neil Harvey. He's in his 90s. Everyone else is gone. But great series, great team. That's why they're called the Invincibles. You know, and Peter Siddle's hat trick for Australia at the Gabba in 2010-11 on his birthday. I remember watching that. Gabe, you said watching a hat trick. You know, watching a hat trick's brilliant. You know, in Edgbaston 2005, England winning that game. Adam Gilchrist, his 57 ball century, the second fastest in Test history at the time, in 2006-7. You know, react to that. That will blow your mind. You know, he just went off, Gilly. You know, he revolutionized wicketkeeping in that innings. So I've named it, and obviously James Anderson and Monty Panesar holding out for a draw in Cardiff in 2009. So I've just listed some great moments for you to check out because you can all watch them.
Definitely. I'll have to check out that Gilchrist. You said 57 on 24, right?
Well, it was 57 ball century he made.
Wow, I said 57 ball century. That's impressive, man.
He at the time, Viv Richards had the record. fellow West Indian, Gabe. And he nearly surpassed the record, but he just went off. He was out of form, Gilly. You know, he got ducks and, you know, he was really out of form. He was thinking about retiring. But then his wife said, no, don't retire. So he came out in Perth, his home ground, well, his second home because he's from New South Wales, but he went over to play for Western Australia in Perth. So basically his adopted home. He smashed a 57-ball century. He just went bang and he just went off. It's just unbelievable, teed off. But, you know, 71 Ashes series. Australia's won 33, England have won 32 since 1882. That is a long rivalry there in the Ashes. You know, it's, you know, when I look at the urn and when I talk about the Ashes, you can see that history and tradition, honor that goes with it. You know, for me, it's just cricket. You know, and I think, Nick and Gabe, by the time you come around to watching the Ashes in December, excuse me, you're going to feel that rivalry. That baggy green in the background there, Nick, and the English cap, you know, both players want to play the Ashes. That's what it's all about as an Australian and English cricketer. You just want to play in an Ashes series. Then you can retire and say, I've done it. I've achieved everything. But really, it's going to be a tough ask for England. They're up against it. Australia are favourites, but also, Nick and Gabe, there's a women's Ashes as well. Not just the men. There's a women's Ashes as well. Bet you didn't know about that.
I did not actually. Nick?
No.
Well, actually, the women's Ashes, it started back in 1934-5, and England won that first test in Brisbane. It wasn't at the Gabba. There's two grounds in Brisbane. There's the exhibition ground and the Gabba. Right, the Gabba didn't host a test match until 1931. So England won that test by 9 wickets. And since then, the women's Ashes has grown and grown, especially over the last few years. They do it on a points-based system. So they play all 3 formats, 1 test, you know, ODIs and T20s. They're worth points. So whoever gets the most points after all that wins the Ashes. Now you're saying, do they play for the urn? No, they don't. That's for the men. They're creating their own tradition and history. They've actually burnt a set of stumps and bales. They put it in this wooden cricket ball, which is in the middle of the trophy. Go look up the trophy. It's a nice trophy to create their own history and tradition that goes with it. But the women's Ashes are happening in January, February. Check it out. Australia, dominant women's side. England, their women's team are going to be up against it. That's for sure. But, you know, it's a great rivalry, the Ashes, both men and female. I look forward to it every 4 years. Nick and Gabe, obviously, coming into cricket, it's going to be, you know, a great series to watch. You know,
it's definitely exciting, man. It's kind of like the World Cup in soccer. You know what I mean? It comes around every 4 years, and it just it's an amazing thing.
Absolutely. So we're going to be talking about your favorite subject, Gabe. I'm going to be talking about umpiring and technology. Ooh. So, Gabe, I'm sure umpires are not on your Christmas list.
Oh, boy.
No.
You know, here's the thing. And you mentioned earlier, it's funny because I've always asked, I always say, you know, umpires are the most loathsome people on the face of the planet. I always say on my streams or on some of the videos, I like, does anybody know an umpire? No, because they probably hide the fact they're umpires. They don't go around broadcasting it like, what do you do for a living? Oh, I work for sanitation. You know what I mean? Or, you know, what do you do for a living? I don't know. You make something up, just anything but an umpire. They're up there, they're loathed. It's a tough gig, and I get that. And you're going to make your case for umpires. But here's my biggest issue with umpires. I think that they have become a part of pretty much every game that they're in. I should not know an umpire by first name, all right? The sporting fans should not know umpires by first name. And so many of them have become a part of the game, and you can see that a lot of their calls are almost designed to, you know what I mean, to get that attention. And I absolutely hate that. I loathe it. And the reality is some things you can do, some things you can't do. And if your eyes are going, I get it. Listen, I'm getting up there in age. I'm in my 40s. But if your eyes are going and you can no longer make the proper call, then it's time to go. It's time to get them out. But I don't remember that the last time an umpire was taken off the field for being unfit. And I think my final thing with umpires is that there's no accountability, at least in American sports. Umpires are walk around with impunity. They do what they want to do. They can they could blow whatever call they want to, and they're still gonna get their paycheck. They're still gonna, you know what I mean? Like it drives me absolutely insane. And it's like people are so passionate about sports. We dedicate so much time, money, and energy into sports. Yes, understand our frustration. And if you blow a call, I get it, you're human. But if you're notoriously or chronically blowing calls, then maybe this is the wrong occupation for you. All right, that's just, my 2 cents.
Nick, your thoughts on umpires in general?
I mean, I don't hate him as much as Gabe does. You got to understand our baseball background and the history of baseball and umpires, and you'd understand a lot of where Gabe's coming from. I agree with what he's saying, that umpires should not be the difference in a game. You don't want to lose a game, especially the playoffs or a championship, because of a bad call, especially if it's one of those situations where you don't really understand where that bad call came from. And the tough thing with cricket is the umpires, they're like God. They're the end all be all in a lot of instances. And, when they put that finger up or they don't put that finger up and they review it, umpire's call holds so much weight, and it does in other sports too. But it's just like in other sports, if you can see that the call was wrong, they reverse, at least in American sports. And it's because we don't fully understand umpire's call and the half of the ball and the 3/4 of the ball. That kind of, if it hits the stumps, it hits the stumps. And I don't want to hear about technology and trajectory or whatever. So it's that part of it's aggravating. I don't hate umpires. You have to have umpires. I definitely don't want robots. I definitely don't want technology making the decision on everything, because that would not be fun. I definitely don't want players going after umpires if they're angry, because you have to be respectful and you have to understand this or that. But it is frustrating when you see one side seem to get that finger a lot more than the other side. And I don't care what side you're rooting for. That shouldn't happen. It should be unbiased. It should be consistent. If it's not a wicket in the first innings, it shouldn't be a wicket in the second innings.
That's right. Well, actually, I am an umpire myself, so I should stick up for the brotherhood, for our fellow brothers in arms, I should say. But no, as you said, Gabe, it is a tough job. And the ICC have done many things to help umpires in terms of technology. DRS is a benefit for them. Obviously, you've reacted to many videos with Steve Buckner. You can see some of the shocking decisions he's made over the time.
Brutal.
Yes. And they do cost games in the end. That's why they brought it in to eliminate the howler, which is the absolute obvious mistake. But teams use it more as a tactic now, really, just because they can. And if you believe it's out, don't review it. If you don't think it's out, then review it and challenge it. Do the T sign. Yep, I'm going to go upstairs. Yep, okay. LBW caught behinds and that. But, it is a tough job. And I like where the ICC are going with it, helping the umpires more in terms of the third umpire, helping out a bit more in terms of the front foot and the short runs, for batsmen touching in, completing runs. That's what a short run is.
We know 2019, New Zealand, England.
Yep, overthrows. Yep, it gets complicated. You need to be a mathematician as an umpire when overthrows are involved. Because when it goes for 4, how many runs they cross and all that, and it's a tough business. But with DRS, it allows us to measure the accuracy rating of umpires as well. And I think the ICC should make these stats available so we know how all umpires are tracking. Obviously, some of the best umpires got an accuracy rating of 95.1, which is pretty good. You're not going to get 100. Now, these stats I got from like last year, so those numbers are going to be a bit different this year. But I think Michael Goff, who umpired in the WTC Final That's his accuracy rating, with the numbers were taken back then, 95.1. And the lowest really in terms of accuracy ratings have been in the 60s. A couple of them have been in the 60s. Some of those umpires are no longer on the elite panel because there's two panels in international cricket in terms of umpiring. There's the elite panel, which is the 12 members, and then the international panel is like the second panel. So you have 4 members from each country in that panel that the cricket board chooses. So they sort of fill in for the elite panel who can't do all the games because the elite panel are going to do all the games. Right? Right. So that's how it works there. But really umpiring, it's a big part of cricket. Technology umpires call. People, the 50% of the ball, is it hitting the middle of the off stump or outside of the off stump, the top of the bails, the wicket zone. Really, people get confused with LBWs. LBW is a simple law to understand. But with DRS and umpires calling technology, it's confusing more people. Right. And they tend to get confused and not understand it. So the ICC will want to, well, they've said, make it more easy for people to understand what is umpire's call. It's basically a margin of error for the umpire. So it's sort of his fallback sort of thing, really. If he gives the decision out, it stays out, not out, vice versa, which happens. So, umpires, they get abused and all that stuff, which I don't think it's acceptable at lower levels, really. Now, I'm speaking not international cricket, but lower levels of cricket, parents and stuff abusing umpires for decisions and that. That's not tolerated. Let's just state that. That shouldn't be tolerated.
Right.
Because that does happen. With parents, get, angry and upset about that.
Oh, trust me. And I'm not perfect. I've had to be escorted off of a field or two, especially when I was coaching. Not as a parent, but when I'm coaching, I will get into it with an umpire if I think their call is wrong, simply because, first and foremost, you're not, I think that if I feel a umpire is being vindictive and calling balls or strikes because, I may be chirping about something else, then you're really taking it out on these kids. You're not taking it out on me. You know what I mean? If you got a personal problem with me, you can see me at the game. You know what I mean? But yes, there should never be a place for, parents getting involved. And, I've got to be better about that. I really do. I think the biggest thing is the umpires that don't own up to their mistakes or can't handle criticism. And from the coaching standpoint, you know what I mean? I've seen, especially in American sports, if you go and address, you can't say anything to an American League umpire in baseball or National League umpire. Major League Baseball umpire, you complain about a ball or a strike, like, hey, I think you missed that call. You're tossed. You're gone. And it's that simple. And you just demonstrably, hurt the other team because you can't take the criticism. Well, you took the job. You know what I mean? It's like it comes with inherent criticism because you're going, you're making decisions. And if they're incorrect, you're going to hear about them. You know what I mean? And I think to not acknowledge the fact that you can be wrong or did make a mistake has always been my biggest issue with umpires.
Yeah, that's right. And umpires do that. They do learn from their mistakes. You're taught to assess, self-reflect what you did right and what you did wrong as a general rule of thumb. And, most umpires who come up through the pathway want to do the job. They're passionate about the job. They want to be international umpires. It's a hard gig to get into. It takes years of practice. It's like playing. It's a craft. The more you do it, the more better you'll get at it with practice. And that's what I do. I practice and you get better at it. You ask people for ideas and, your job as an umpire is to umpire. You don't favor one side or the other. You don't care who wins. All you care about is just doing your job to the best of your ability. I think we tend to lose that sometimes in perspective. Or criticize umpires because they make a mistake, but put yourself in their shoes in that high pressure environment. It's a tough gig. But
I get it's a tough gig. The tough thing for me, and this is coming from a fan's perspective and someone learning about cricket, is these athletes, they are criticized to every degree, right? For everything they do, everything they don't do. And I'm one of the ones that will criticize Virat Kohli, and I'm an Indian cricket fan, for crying out loud. But when it comes to a big sport, if we're going to criticize the players, we've got to criticize the officials too. And it's me, Gabe and I, we've been so surprised at, constantly the response in the comment section have been so much about don't attack the umpires. You can't make fun of the umpires. It's not their fault. And it's like, okay, but we criticize the players, right? And so it's kind of got to go hand in hand. And I'm not saying open season on umpires, but I think that it should be fair when there's a reason that calls for it. Because you have everyone and their brother on YouTube or on TV, they're dissecting every aspect of every player's game. So, I think it's okay to, get some criticism out there, and that's how we grow and whatnot. But, it is what it is. I wouldn't want to be judged as a teacher, but the public eye, that would be horrible. Yeah. So, I can't really speak. It
does burn when you make a mistake. I've been there. You want to get everything right, but you can't. Someone's got to do it at the end of the day. Right. They cop so much umpires, but really they want to do everyone. Basically what I'm trying to say, us as fans and us as umpires want to get the correct decision. That's all we want to get. With DRS, technology will help that, but technology is not always 100%. Ball tracking, umpires call, whatever. But at the end of the day, if you get the right decision, everyone's happy. And that's what you want. And, do you like DRS, Nick and Gabe? Is there some sort of review system in baseball that they use? Do you like that idea that umpires have that sort of system to fall back on?
You've got to have a review system, absolutely. But I don't like how it's there to help just the umpires. I think it should be there just to help what is the right decision. And if it's the right decision, then that should be the right decision. It shouldn't favor one or the other. But yes, absolutely. If there wasn't a review system, then it would be absolutely infuriating.
Yeah, they do have review systems in baseball. Instant replay, football has come along, because back to our conversation earlier, sports is big business, okay? And listen, just like I tell everyone else, gambling's illegal in a lot of places, but you go to any country, pick up any paper and they got spreads, they got favorites. Why do I need to know who the favorite is if I'm not betting? Or what do I need to know what the spread is if I'm not, you know what I mean? Like it's built into it. So especially for those people who gamble, whether it's legally or illegally, you know what I mean? Those things matter, man. There's so much money involved, not to mention bonuses for the players. And as a former player, or as a parent of a player who's currently playing, one in college, one in high school, right? That one umpire's call can change my at bat. That one umpire's call can change my one inning as a pitcher. He misses a strike that should have been called, a third strike. The guy walks now I got to face another batter. That guy hits a double. He just blew up my numbers. And it matters. It all matters, because sports, unfortunately, sports is business. It's no longer about just having fun. If you're playing sports at any level, if you're in high school, it's to try to get a scholarship to go to college. If you're in college, it's to try to go pro and make money. But it's a business, and there's a lot of people making money off of it. You got to get it right, especially if you've got the technology to get it right. And I think, to me, that's the thing that chaps me. If you've got the technology to get it right, get it right. Don't just because of some arbitrary rule. Well, you only got 2 challenges. Does that change the fact that the call was wrong? Just because I'm out of challenges, the call was wrong. And I've seen that happen. Now, Tim Payne, and you know what I'm talking about. Yes, he shouldn't have done it. But did that change the fact that the call was wrong? No. So if you can get it right from the booth, fix it. Help that umpire out. That's all I'm saying. So the way that they employ DRS, just like and it's the same thing in Major League Baseball, it drives me crazy. They know there was a mistake. They know there was a bad call, but because the team is out of challenges, they won't change that. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there. That's right.
Umpiring
is about
agreeing with an umpire. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
That's a rarity, isn't it? No, but umpiring's about a team, you know. When you see a game of cricket, you see umpires signal to each other at, you know, who's at square leg. They signal between balls, you know, how many balls left in the over, did it come off the bat or the pad? You know, you're trying to help your mate out, really. Because pretty much you're a team. There's 3 teams in cricket, the 2 teams that are on the field and the officiating team. And the 3rd team doesn't get talked about a lot. So it's very important. You've got to be a team. You've got to support your mate, as we say here in Australia. Support your mate, because it is tough. Players are going to be, you know, disgruntled and angry and carry on like that. You're taught from a young age in cricket, when you learn cricket, is to always respect the umpire's decision, either good or bad. You don't carry on like an idiot, because you lose respect that way. You know,
right?
That's important, because that's pretty much what the spirit of cricket is: respecting everyone, opposition, the team you're playing for, be gracious in victory or defeat, match officials, all that stuff. So it is a hard job from experience, you know, especially when you're umpiring, looking down at the front foot and then looking up. Picking no balls is hard. It's a craft, as I said before, and you really got to master that. Other things, decision-making, you know, making those decisions, you just got to master it. And it's very important that we don't put people off from umpiring at lower levels. We need them because we don't have many. So it's very important to promote people to umpiring. And it's a good way to stay in the game if you've got an injury and you can't play anymore. You know, most people umpire until like they're 70 or something, you know. There's no age limit, you know, because pretty much umpires don't really have a cutoff age. I think it's a bit different in all other sports where you have a cutoff age in terms of retirement. But in cricket, you can umpire up until you're like 60 or something internationally. So you can still do it for a long period of time. But it's a great way of staying involved in the game and giving back. At the end of the day, you're giving back to the game that's given so much to you. That's very important. The game is not bigger than the individual. The game is always bigger than us. And you should always give back. No matter what, be a volunteer at a club or something. Be the president, be the treasurer, you know, do the scoring or make the teas or the lunches like some people do. You know, I think we do that well in Australia. Banding together with that camaraderie ship. It's very important. And that's what cricket's about. It's about playing in a team, even though it's an individual sport, but it's a team. That's just my view on it. And umpiring's a team. You know, sure, Gabe, you're going to have your opinions about umpires and bad calls and all that stuff, but it just happens. You know,
I hear you. And honestly, you know, I think that's sports in general. You know what I mean? It's something where when we're talking about sports, it's about that the spirit of the game, and it's about everyone being a part of the game. And whether I play for the New York Yankees or not, which I don't, obviously, you know, even as a spectator, I'm a part of the game and respecting the game. And I think that's why we all love sports, right? That's why we're here now. And you know, unless you're a fan, and, you know, by definition, fan means fanatic, right? Unless you're a fan of a sport, you don't get it. And I know people will tell me right now, like, I know people that have zero interest in sports, and you don't get it. That you do not get it unless you're a fan and you're invested in the sport.
Guys, thank you for joining me today for this cricket discussion. I've had some fun with this discussion today. I'm sure you learned a lot as well about cricket.
Absolutely.
As always. But yeah, thank you so much. I'm very grateful for your time to come on today, and hopefully we can have many more discussions in the future.
Definitely, man. Definitely. Thanks for having us. Excited to be here. You know, West Indies, Australia. I'm rooting for both sides, but I'm from the West Indies, so obviously I'm rocking with them first. But man, I will definitely be waiting for this episode to drop and pushing it through on Twitter, and all the best of luck to you and to Team Australia. And man, maybe we could get together again during the Ashes. Maybe you could even join us during one of our live streams.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Australia
I would love to.
Playing, man, send you an invite and we could sit down, watch the game, and torture each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dibbly-Dobbly, Wibbly-Wobbly. We appreciate that. I know you just go by the first two names. Yeah. Don't forget, anyone from CFA Nation, you're joining us here, to like and subscribe to Dibbly-Dobbly. We would appreciate that. Consider that a personal favor. And, you know, right now, West Indies looking pretty good in this match, so we'll see what happens. But
yes, I'll be quickly scooting off and seeing how the boys are going. But once again, guys, thank you for your time. It's been a long time in the running and planning, but yeah, just happy you can be here. Gabe, would you like to do the honors for us?
Until next time, that's 6 runs.
Hi everyone, hope you enjoyed my cricket discussion with Nick and Gabe from Cricket for Americans. Be sure to subscribe to Cricket for Americans, Boring Reviews, and The Final Reaction. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell to get the latest episodes of the podcast, and like and share our Facebook page, and follow us on Twitter. Until next time, keep safe and bye for now.